Hello everyone and welcome back to Southern Wealth. I hope you guys are doing very well. If you enjoy the content, please consider dropping that like and subscribe. It greatly helps the channel. So quite a volatile day. As I mentioned in my previous video, Peter Schiff predicted a Black Monday for the US stock market for the 19th time since 2022, and 19 out of 19 he has been wrong. Of course, he never talks about it. I can tell you that if one day he gets one of these right, he will say, see, I told you so. But he's now currently at 0 for 19. Also, Jim Cramer was predicting the Black Monday. And today he hinted that in his opinion, the bottom for stocks is not in. So maybe it's in. you know, Jim Cramer is very powerful. So if he is saying something like that, you need to be aware of this. In my live stream on Saturday, we touched a little bit about this, but I think it's good to refresh. I said that in my view, there was a good chance that crypto had already bottomed. Otherwise, it would follow stocks and probably would bottom in the first half of the week, meaning somewhere between Monday to Wednesday. I guess the second option ended up happening, with crypto selling off quite aggressively on Sunday. On Sunday evening, I also mentioned that during the weekend, don't be surprised if there's huge sell-offs, because the market has so thin volume and so thin liquidity that a few players can really move the market, and boy did they move. I think at some point Ethereum was at 1420, something like that, which was a very old CME gap that is now closed. And now there's a massive one obviously open until the 1740 levels. And you have also Bitcoin currently, at the time of this recording, close to 79,000. I think at the worst it touched 74,500. However, this depends a little bit on which exchange you're looking at, particularly with these very aggressive moves. Some exchanges actually hold the price much higher or substantially higher than the others. So it will highly depend on which one you're looking at. We are back to extreme fear, which to a certain degree is good. If you DCA on, if you dollar cost average on extreme fear over the years, now of course historic performance cannot guarantee future performance, but if you had done that in the past, you would be a very successful investor in crypto or even in stocks in general. The VIX, the volatility index, remains very, very high. We actually, if you can believe this, we gapped down quite aggressively on the futures for the S&P, Nasdaq, Dow Jones. But actually, the Nasdaq ended up green, the S&P ended up very close to green, Dow Jones and Russell ended up red, and the bond market, so TLT that we look a lot, sold off quite aggressively, like 3%. Now, these are not normal moves. My feeling is we're gonna discover this in a little while. Or better yet, we can see if that's true or not, what I'm about to say. But I get the feeling that the Chinese government is selling a lot of treasuries. Maybe I'm wrong. That's the feeling that I get. As I've mentioned in my previous video, the Fed is once again late. They should have been cutting already, not just on Friday, but even before that, because the data is showing that inflation is coming down quite aggressively, unemployment is ticking up a little bit higher, and basically the other central banks are starting to cut rates very aggressively. Now, why is this a situation? Very simple. If you are in Europe and your funding is 4%, or if you're in America and your funding is 6%, you're already at a disadvantage. So I think the Fed should also take this into account. However, the Fed is widely known, particularly with Powell, to always be late to the party when it comes to stimulating, when it comes to hiking rates, when it comes to re-stimulating. So unfortunately, there's no surprise there. There's a FOMC meeting at closed doors today, and we're going to read the minutes on Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised if you had a little bit of bullishness, of dovishness written over there. At the end of the day, if assets follow too much, assets collateralize debt, Who owns the debt or who holds the debt? Banks. What is the Fed? A central bank. Simple. We know the logic. Now, anything can happen between now and, to be honest, Thursday in particular, but even Friday, because we have PPI on Friday. But I think CPI will be very important on Thursday, because if you have a better than expected level, I think the market will start pricing in extreme high likelihood of further rate cuts. After the retaliatory tariffs by China back to the US, basically, Trump, I think, said today that if they don't remove those tariffs by tomorrow, he will raise another 50% on China and basically start having negotiations with other countries immediately, meaning doing everything they can to sign up deals and to basically remove China completely as much as possible from other negotiations. I hope it doesn't get there. I think if that happens, I think it's going to be quite aggressive. So I hope that tomorrow cooler heads can be maintained. Otherwise, yeah, as I've said, expect maximum volatility. But if we do delve into massive trade wars, then the central banks come in, pump liquidity into the system like there's no tomorrow, and voila, you have your rates coming down aggressively, which means the US can refinance the debt, and you have risk assets like crypto exploding. Usually, what I like to do in these highly volatile moments is sitting on my hands. The probability of you messing up is actually quite high. And if I can, if I have the liquidity available, I like to deploy a few funds to some of my favorite projects. This is what I do. You don't have to copy me. You shouldn't copy me. I am just disclosing what I like to do and my strategy, and it has worked well for me over the years. People are still very pissed, are very pissed with Trump, are very pissed with the situation at hand. The reality is there was just the first meeting today with Israel. Europe has proposed no tariffs between both regions, which is also good. And Taiwan has offered not only no tariffs, but also increased investment in the US. There was some fake news going around that Trump was going to pause the tariffs for 90 days. I mean, and then people saying, oh, he's caving. Let's get something very straight, even if you're in favor of Trump or against Trump. If he pauses the tariffs, is it caving? The answer is, and this is valid for Trump supporters and for Trump haters alike, it doesn't matter. If he pauses the tariffs for 90 days, and 90 days go by, and the situation of trade between US and other countries is identical to today, then he caved and he lost. Period. If he gives a 90-day pause for tariffs and starts to sign trade agreements in which tariffs or regulation or pledged investments into the US or some sort of way to reduce trade deficits happens, then it's a win for him and for the Americans, by the way. That's it. So if there's a 90-day pause, let's say that this was a leak and that this is going to be announced on April 9th, for example, that there's going to be a delay, just guessing, just conspiracy theorying around here. The media will say immediately, what a big failure, he's caving, he's panicked. The MAGA Republicans will say, no, he's a master deal breaker. He's about to sign the best deals the world have ever seen. And the answer is neither of them is accurate at that moment. You have to wait for the deals to be arranged and signed. You have to look if the situation for the US improved or not, and then you can say, yes, it was good, or yes, it was a failure. Not beforehand. These things are very serious to be playing politics here, because this can reshape the future of economies worldwide. And as I've said, I think he picked the right moment because the Chinese economy has been imploding literally for the past couple of years. Europe is on its knees in many major economies. So I get it. You don't like the style, you don't like the form, but the reality is if he signs major deals in favor of the US, he has done well by the American people, which is what he was elected for. Unfortunately, he's not elected to be the president of the world. He's elected to be the president of the US. Now, on YouTube and Twitter, everybody hates him because prices are down, because things have come down, but we know how these markets are. If in 3 months' time we are ramping higher, if we're doing better, oh my God, he's a genius, he's the best, I never doubted, I always loved him, I don't know what you're talking about. Unfortunately, this is the society we live in today. He's a genius on Monday and an idiot on Tuesday and back to being Einstein on a Friday. Unfortunately, this is the situation where we live. Everything is exaggerated, everything is dramatized, and everything is done for clickbait, including the thumbnail on this video. Thank you very much for my wife for arranging that for me, as she was very, very nice to do so. So, in summary, quite the developments happening. I expect, personally speaking, that massive trade deals will be arranged. I don't think China will get it that easy. I wouldn't be surprised if some tariffs will still be in place, saying like, oh, this is to compensate for all the previous years where you haven't been paying your fair share or you've been tricking us or whatever. Or if you don't want to do that, come and build something in my country, hire some people, build a factory, and maybe we can think about having no tariffs at all. I think he wants a good relationship with UK in particular, Australia, Canada, and Mexico. I know that sounds strange, but don't forget there's a Canadian election later this month. I think this is my expectation. Between now and June, the US and Canada will have a massive, excellent trade deal, but nothing's going to be signed before 28th of April, which is when the elections take place. Don't forget they have an interim PM at the moment. And I think South Korea, Vietnam, and Japan will also be very good. I hope they strike a deal with China, but I do think that they will make China pay. And let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff that China in terms of trade has done over the years, including to Europe, including to other. It's not just about the US, in which it's not really fair competition and fair trade. So that needs to stop. It's not possible that they can get away with it over and over again. And with that, thank you very much for your support, guys. Still think the bottom will be somewhere between Monday and Wednesday. I think Thursday will be a better day. We'll see if I'm right, we'll see if I'm wrong. Feel free to destroy me in the comment section. Tell me what an idiot I am. And with that, thank you very much for your support, guys. Like and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.